Multicultural literature in the secondary English classroom. So I graduated from Rutgers University in 2011 with a Bachelor of Arts in English. From there, I moved on to work as a reporter for local newspapers and eventually a copywriter. Unfortunately, this profession wasn't going in the direction that I hoped, and I was able to get a preschool teaching job with some intense hands-on training since I didn't have any formal education in the subject. I really loved teaching. It was really rewarding and everything that I was looking for in a career, but I knew I had to go back to school if I wanted a solid, steady teaching job, and I also wanted to use my English degree since I've always been passionate about English. So I began earning my master's and certificate in secondary English at Arcadia in May of last year. In September, I'll move on to student teach at Sandy Run Middle School for a 7th grade classroom, and I will be complete with my program December 7th, 2018. What does a multicultural curriculum look like in a secondary English classroom? My research question stems from my own journey as a student. Throughout my years as a learner, English has always been a passion of mine. I loved creative writing, reading for fun, enjoyed reading and watching plays. My summers were spent laying around reading books for enjoyment. I would frequently visit bookstores with my mom and grandma where picking out a new book to read was more thrilling than a new toy. This quickly changed when I entered secondary school. The language arts curriculum in my suburban New Jersey school, like many schools, included books such as The Great Gatsby, Animal Farm, Lord of the Flies, Of Mice and Men, the classics. As an English major, I have a mild appreciation for the classics, but growing up I was bored and unengaged like many other students. I couldn't relate to these books. They didn't spark my interest in what was going on in the lives of those around me. They were all based on the past, and the one thing many of these classics had in common is that they were not representative of the diverse world around me. When I entered college as an undergrad, I quickly became engaged with literature again. I was lucky enough to take classes called Gay Literature, Literature and Spirituality, African American Literature, the list goes on and on. I read books and poems written by and about people from all different walks of life. These diverse classes and novels at college made me the socially aware person that I am today. I became engrossed with learning about different cultures, traveling, and paying attention to current events. I also became a more empathetic human, both socially and politically. Once I started reading diverse books of all different genres, I completely changed for the better. With all this now behind me, I am curious as to why students have to wait until college to have their eyes open to the happenings of the world around them. And what happens to those students that don't attend college or major in more technical fields? As an educator, I want to expose learners to diverse thoughts and stories as soon as I can. I truly believe this can only help make them better, more understanding and aware human beings. To me, this is the most important job I have as a teacher. I am hoping as a future English teacher that I can incorporate diverse literature into the curriculum. I am curious to see how students respond to these works of literature. Will they be more engaged? Will they want to find out more about different ideas and cultures? Will diverse students be able to relate to text? I'm excited to find out and hopefully work in a space where I can incorporate this passion. So a really big support for my project was the book Teaching for Joy and Justice by Linda Christensen. The author of this book is a teacher and writer that inspired much of my teaching philosophy. In this book, she writes about what happens when you treat students as equals, individuals, and intellectuals. This book is an inspiring and helpful resource as a future English teacher. Christensen teaches educators how to draw on students' lives and incorporate their diverse backgrounds into every aspect of an English curriculum. According to Christensen, a multicultural curriculum should reflect a teacher's multicultural classroom. She states, teaching the works of writers of color and working-class writers allows students to understand that no matter their gender, skin color, or social class, we can write. The books we choose to bring into our classrooms say a lot about what we think is important, whose stories get told, whose voices are heard, and whose are marginalized. Two other important articles were Bridging the Gap by Teaching Multicultural Literature by Y.R. Dong and Weaving Multicultural Literature into Middle School Curricula. These both include first-hand experiences of teachers teaching diverse books, which is really helpful since I'm not a teacher yet to read these first-hand experiences. My unit plans were designed by using the book Understanding by Design by Jay Mateague and Grant Wiggins. This talks about backward design, where you focus on a goal before you do your learning activities, which was introduced to me in another class at Arcadia. When I curated my book list, I used Goodreads.com and leonlow.com, which were really helpful in sorting and reviewing multicultural books. And when creating my lesson plans, teachingtolerance.org was a big help, especially in an art activism project that I did in one of my unit plans. And readwritethink.org is really useful as an English teacher, as it has lessons on books, themes, topics for every grade, which was really helpful in this project. To fully understand and explore my inquiry, I began my project by cultivating a multicultural reading list for secondary students. I used the websites listed on my previous slide, books from my own studies, and was able to draw from prior experiences. This was a learning experience for me, since I had not heard of many or even most of the books on my list. Once I found 2 books I was interested in, I moved on to create 2 unit plans for the select books. To truly create diverse plans, the first book I created a plan for is a book on Native American culture, intended for middle school students. The second unit plan is centered on racism, police brutality, and African American culture, created for a high school classroom. For the first unit plan, I included classroom work, discussions, and projects alongside the close reading of the text. The second unit plan below is intended to take place after students read the novel for 2 weeks. I did this so I can focus on larger issues that the novel brings up, and so for the reader to see 2 sides of a unit plan. The first plan coincides with the close reading of the book, and the second unit plan focuses on themes and current events that the students will explore after reading the text. By designing unit plans, my goal was to make them practical and useful for my future classroom when I become a teacher. The unit plans included will help the reader see how diverse novels can work in a secondary classroom and the interesting and important themes they bring up. Classroom activities were created to engage students in difficult yet important topics with time to reflect and relate material to their own lives. The unit plans I created are important, but also fluid, allowing for development as I progress into my role as a teacher. The biggest strength of my project design is practicality. These are plans that I can use and will use in the future. They're definitely going to change as I progress into my field, but they provide a useful framework for my future teaching. This is why I created 2 unit plans and a multicultural literature list, so I could actually see my project come into fruition. This subject and design are also things I'm passionate about, which I have learned throughout the years can be an important aspect in successfully implementing lessons. Also, creating a unit plan for middle school and high school was a strong point in my project design. I will be certified to teach both grades, and while I will not be working in both schools at once, it has allowed me to see how lessons and activities differ for different grades as well as subject matter of my novels. My biggest limitation is that I'm not able to fulfill my unit plans by putting them into action. As I'm not a teacher, I cannot put these plans into use until I finish my program and obtain a job. Even after I successfully land the job, I might not have the freedom to implement my own literature and unit plans into the curriculum depending on the school. My hope is that even if I have limitations in my planning, that I can take bits and pieces from these unit plans to create a meaningful and engaging learning environment for future students. For my project, I created 2 unit plans. As previously mentioned, each unit plan follows the framework of backward design. The first unit plan is created for the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. This unit plan occurs over a 5-week span, and each week is broken down into a descriptive calendar. This lesson is intended for middle school students. The second unit plan I created is based on the novel The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This unit plan is intended for a high school classroom. When entering this unit, it's to be assumed that students have closely read the novel for 2 weeks, followed by a 3-week plan around the important themes of the book. The activities of this lesson is also broken down into a weekly descriptive calendar. Lastly, my project ends with a multicultural book list. The book list is broken down into middle school books and high school books. It's important to note that I only focused on race for my book list. There are many diverse topics and backgrounds I want to expand on, but I wanted to spend more time on this project reading the novels and creating the unit plans. So as I mentioned, the first unit plan I created was for the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. The essential questions for this unit are: what expectations are placed on us by society and our communities? How do these expectations shape our identities? How do we rise above expectations and truly live the lives we want to live? Do we place expectations on others? Is a person's dedication to their community, family, or tribe more important than their personal vote? This unit includes close readings of the text, daily discussions on themes of identity, race, family, stereotypes, writing prompts, essays, a web quest on the author, Sherman Alexie, journal writing and reflecting, poems, gallery walks, a character backstory assignment, and a final multimodal project. So the next few slides are just a snapshot of the unit plans I created for this book. We have a writing prompt. What did you want to be when you were younger? Do you still feel this way now? Do people encourage this dream? Is there anything getting in the way of achieving this dream? In their notebook, students will also write a backstory based on one of the characters they are introduced to at this point in the novel. Students will also work in groups at their tables to write a response to a Dear Abby question about a middle school student that is being bullied. Students will write a persuasive essay after reading about the debate of using Native American culture and emblems in American sports. Students will be prompted to write a poem based on one of the art pieces in the book. Discuss Junior's two identities and how he is weaving his way through both tribes. Discuss death and grief steps with students. Talk about Junior's thoughts of suicide. Is he handling things appropriately? Do different cultures handle death differently? And since the idea of suicide comes up in this book, one of my days is dedicated to a school counselor session where a school counselor comes in and talks to the students about suicide. For their final project of the unit, students will work on their multimodal projects. Their multimodal projects must include previous assignments that were a sketch drawing, a character's body biography, and a 2-page minimum narrative from Junior's perspective. And then students can then choose any 4 different genres that connect off each other, supporting the central theme of their paper. And students will have time to workshop in class and peer edit and review. My second unit that I created is based on the Hate U Give. The essential questions are: how can young people use their voices to become social activists? How can neighborhoods riddled with gangs and violence be helped? Do parents of Black children have the responsibility to give them the talk about how to survive a police encounter? Some of the activities are journal writing, reflecting, peer editing, an activism art project, Socratic seminars, daily discussions, self-reflections, and a final research project. So again, the next few slides are just a snapshot of the unit I created. Students will listen to an NPR podcast interview with the author Angie Thomas and read a transcript from another interview. They'll watch a YouTube video of how Tupac inspired this book. They'll listen to a non-explicit version of the song Thug Life and discuss what the acronym stands for. They'll view the TED Talk as a class, How to Raise a Black Son in America by Clint Smith. They'll listen and dissect local West Philly musician Chill Moody's song We're Worth More, which talks about police brutality. And they will discuss how essential questions are addressed in the podcast and videos. I'll explain to students that Angie Thomas wrote this book after she was moved by the Black Lives Matter movement. Students will listen to NPR podcast Black Lives Matter slogan becomes a bigger movement, and podcast Black Lives Matter's founders describe paradigm shift in the movement. Students will use technology to explore the Black Lives Matter website to deepen students' knowledge of the movement. Research project topics are code switching, multiple identities, Tupac Shakur's activism, the Black Panther movement, gang culture, and portrayal of police shootings of African Americans in the media. Students will complete an art activism project where they'll explore the PBS website with videos and descriptions of famous social activism projects from artists such as Lenora Lee, Ai Weiwei, and Aisha Fukushima. Students will pick a cause they are passionate about and work with a partner or individually to develop a nonprofit organization to fight to change their social concern. Their project must include a name for their organization, a mission statement, and a written artist statement to describe what the organization does. Now that I'm at the end of my project, I realize how deeply these topics impact me and my surrounding community. Before I began, my head was flooded with ideas and thoughts long before this course started. But when I began researching support for this project, I knew how important my topic was. Once I started diving into the 2 texts I selected, my eyes opened to all the important themes and issues that these books bring up. When I was in school, I wasn't talking about suicide, identity, family issues, police brutality, or anything nearly as close. These very relevant topics were considered to be taboo, and today, more often than not, they still are, despite children being at the age when these topics most apply. I was thrilled to see different opinions and ideas out there from other educators, and was happy to hear from a vast community of others that feel as passionately about this topic as I do. This project has left me deeply excited to teach. Creating unit plans that differ from everything that I've been taught growing up has shown me how I can expose my students to important ideas and issues. Before starting my unit planning, my ideas were abstract. Creating this project has brought my ideas and passion down to reality, engaging in plans that I can actually picture myself teaching in the future. The purpose of my project was to give students the tools that they need to be empathetic, open-minded individuals that are eager to learn about other people and the world around them. I also want my students to be interested in the text they're reading by relating readings to their own lives and current events. Students often feel disconnected to literature as it's outdated and distant from their own lives. As educators, we should always strive for better. My research on multicultural literature in the secondary classroom will continue long into my teaching profession. I will take time to explore different novels for my future students to read and to think of creative lessons that will keep them engaged and curious to look at the world around them with curiosity. I am prepared to discuss important and difficult issues with my students and am looking forward to learning from them and expressing my curiosity in their different cultures and identities. I am eager to share my background with my students and to use literature and the arts to get to know as much as we can about the beautiful, difficult, vast earth that we all share as one.